Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And thanks again for coming out, marking 2 days in your calendar for financial aid. Wasn't our plan, but it was a nice sunny day, right, today to learn about this. We are very fortunate tonight to have a great partner in this process, and that's Ruth Husich, who is the Director for Financial Aid at Elmhurst College. She's been there 17 years and not planning to leave anytime soon. So she's pro. I was going to say old pro, but isn't that offensive?
It fits, it's okay.
So we have 2 sessions, as we mentioned, in the auditorium tonight. And tonight, this session truly is kind of the broad overview of everything you need to know about financial aid, how the process works. It might give you, if you've done the FAFSA before, it might give you a little better insight as to what kind of things were they looking for when they said no to me the first time I did it, right? And it will also, I think, give you some information about other things beyond the FAFSA, beyond federal financial aid, when you're looking at how to kind of cause some relief around affordability for college financing. So again, you'll be able to access both of these programs after tomorrow in our program archive in the College of Career Center portion of our website. If you want to go back, kind of review it, or see what they were saying in that other room. So thank you, Ruth, again for agreeing to come.
Okay, let's get started. I like to get to know my audience. So how many of you, because it's already January 27th, is that right? 27th? How many of you have already done the FAFSA for the academic year 15-16? Okay, that's about half of you. How many of those who filed it, this is not your first child to go to college? Wow. 1. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. All right, so you've got an older one. How many of you, this is your very first time at the rodeo? Okay, all right. All right, so what we're going to talk about is financial aid. Jerry's presentation is about doing the FAFSA. The FAFSA, and I will try to reinforce that particular form because it happens to be one of my favorite topics because it is the most unique application for free money of anything I've ever met in my life. And we'll talk about that. These are the topics we're going to talk about: the net price calculator, federal methodologies, and institutional methodologies, the types and sources of financial aid, educational loans, and understanding the financial aid award package. We step back once more. Those, the 50% of you who have not filed the FAFSA, how many of you do not think you need to do it? A couple of you. Okay, not many. All right, so that's good. We'll see what we can, if I can convert you by the end of this evening. All right, net price calculator. Have any of you tried a net price calculator on a college website? Not many. This is not supposed to be a secret, but schools have made it such. The net price calculator became a federal regulation for all schools of higher learning that actually enroll first-time freshman students. That's who it's targeted to. And what it is a simple calculation. I call it a mini FAFSA, or in other words, a mini calculation and processing of how needy a family could be and what kind of financial aid a student might be able to receive. If I do this, would that be better? Then you can't see. That they might get at a particular school. It is supposed to be prominently placed on the website. So if you cannot find it by going either to the home page of the college website, try to go into financial aid, try to go into admissions, try to go into tuition, and look for net price calculator. It's a law on that we are all naming ours net price calculator. We had a cute little funky one to make us unique, and then we found out, oops, that's not right. It has to be net price calculator. Schools will vary on how much information they deliver. If you're talking about a community college or state school, most likely after you enter your income information, and it is just an estimate, that it will only give back whether or not the student is eligible for a federal grant, might give the level of federal loans. If you're talking about a private school, it's more likely to ask you to give them a little bit of information about the academics of the student, and we'll spit out what type of an academic scholarship they might get. And then go on to the income part, and we may split it out and give you a little bit more of a granular look at financial aid. Now, remember that this form is asking you to estimate income. And the schools will then estimate what your information would give your student, your child, at that particular school. It is an early way, it's an early tool to be able to sift through or funnel down the many, many schools that your kids are looking at. How many of you parents have students who are looking at more than 10 schools? So maybe you're going to want to use this because it will help you to get an early information about what the students might be eligible for. And you might eliminate the school, or you might say, wow, this is a better deal than I thought. Because most schools, most private schools particularly, you can look at the sticker price, but maybe only 2% of the students who attend actually pay the sticker price. State schools are stepping up with additional financial aid, so you will see a reduction in those sticker prices as well. Most of this extra aid is based on merit. And then community colleges too, some of them are bringing in the merit scholarships to help to invite students to come to their schools. Make it a good reason, make it a good buy for the parents. Now, I call this the concrete foundation of federal aid, the federal methodology. It is something that is regulated by the U.S. Congress, and it is administered through the U.S. Department of Education. There is an analysis that we refer to as the FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And when I walk out this door, I hope that all of you take one word with you, and that is the first word in the title of this form, is free. It is a free application. You will come into contact with many, many financial aid consultants. Many of them will do your taxes and then offer to do your FAFSA too. It is a free application. And I will tell you, after 17 years of working in this business, I find more errors on a FAFSA that has been prepared by a professional than I do for my average parents, because the form is written to the average person. It is not written to the professional who understands the dynamics of your investments and your assets and your untaxed income. It is meant for the average parent. And truth be told, just yesterday, I had an email exchange back and forth between one of these individuals in my area who was charging somebody money to complete the FAFSA for them, asking me for advice. Now, if you've got one school that your child's interested, or 20 schools that your child is interested in, the individual financial aid offices at those schools can help you. We can't say, well, you need to put down $2,572. We can't tell you to do that, but we can certainly tell you where to find the information to fill in a particular field, all right? So the federal methodology considers the income, assets, expenses, family size, and other factors to evaluate a family's ability to pay for college. Okay? Any questions so far? By the way, you're welcome to interrupt me at any time to give you an answer, because if you've got a question, there might be somebody else in this room that's got the same question, and let's not forget it. So if it's something I'll cover later, I will tell you so. Basic eligibility guidelines. The student, not the parents, must be either a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. They must have a valid Social Security card or number. Male students, all you young men, once you hit the age of 18, you must register for the Selective Service. Now, there's some parents in here will still remember what Selective Service was for. It's called the draft. Why we still have it now, I'm not quite sure, but we do. Women don't have to register, but the men do. And it is one of the requirements for the young men to have registered for selective service. We don't have the draft. Nobody's been called up to serve unwillingly in our military since, what, 1973? But we still have it. Okay, so some questions you don't ask, you just do.
They're not 18 or not going to be 18 when they go to college. You just say no.
Well, the questions will be, are you male or female?
It says,
Yes.
"Are you registered?"
And it will say, are you registered? Have you registered for selective service? And you will say no, because that is the truth. Now, we know, the feds know, that all young men that enter college are not yet 18. The way the law reads is basically they have to register. As a new student, before the age of 18 or just turning 18, schools are permitted to process financial aid and disperse financial aid. But next year, once they are already 19, we will stop processing until that student does actually get registered. Now, the FAFSA will give the boys an opportunity to send their information to selective service. So if they, now my understanding, since I only had girls, so I'm kind of talking out of school here, I believe that they're allowed to register within 3 months of their 18th birthday. So if they say no, they have not registered, then the next question will pop up and say, would you like us to forward this information to selective service? And if you say yes, that will go to selective service and it will get the student registered at that point. If you prefer to wait, that is absolutely fine. This first year, it is not a big hindrance to financial aid, but we have a lot of young men who were the oldest one in their classes, so they are already 18. So those young men, we do have to require that they get their registration done. If their birthday has hit, we do require it first. Okay? Yes? Any other question? Yes.
So my son is over 18, so he has to say yes.
He needs to be registered.
Register.
If he is not registered yet,
It's not registered.
okay, he'll answer yes to being male. Are you registered for selective service? No. Would you like to have us forward this information to selective service? Yes. Because the things that are needed for selective service are legal name, social security number, and birth date. That's it. Okay? Yes.
If he registered no, whatever.
If he's 18, the application will be flagged that he has not yet been registered. And if he is 18, then we will hold his processing the form until we actually see that he has been registered. If it's done through the FAFSA, we'll get notification from them that the process has been done, but you can also notify the schools that he has registered. We can go on the selective service website and get the information, verify it. So you can either notify the school or alert or send something in, because they do give a little printout. Okay. This is not something to get terribly excited about, but it is something that a lot of families are not aware of. And I do find it a little unusual, but that's not my business. Okay. So the FAFSA calculates the EFC. Now, have you learned, I'm talking in acronyms, FAFSA, EFC. The EFC stands for the expected family contribution. That means it takes a look at the student. What is the size of the family? How many of those family members are in college? What's the age of the oldest parent? What state do they live in? What is the income and assets of the parent and the student? And then it will calculate out what that family should be able to afford for 1 year of school for that student. Doesn't matter whether they're going to Lake County Community College or if they're going to Harvard. That number is the same. Now, my experience with the EFC, my personal experience is there are two reactions, one emotion. You're either going to laugh or you're going to cry, but your emotion is fear. Because you're going to see a number that you've been living hand to mouth for years, saving here, doing this, doing everything right. Now all of a sudden somebody says, well, you can afford $20,000 to send that kid to school this year. And you go, what? Where am I supposed to get the $20,000? Not everybody's prepared. Thus, we have financial aid. So There's nothing you can do about the FAFSA, the EFC. That is a calculation based on the information that you give us. I will talk about later what can be done in the event that the information you give us is not accurate to the date simply because of a financial disaster in the family or something like that. But for the most part, the information is what it is. Is there any way to cheat the system? Not really. There are some things that I will tell you that will work against you that you might be able to change, but for the most part, it is what it is. So you have to accept it, but the schools are your best friend. They're the ones that can help you to make your student unique. The FAFSA is an extremely black and white application in a big square box. Not one of you has a child who fits in a square box. They're all unique. Your family's unique, and that's where the schools come into play. This application is annual, but you cannot do it before January 1st of a given year because it looks for the information from your previous year's income tax forms. So for the 15-16 year, you're going to be using information from your 2014 taxes. And my bet is, if I see one hand go up that they already have their taxes completed in this room, I will be shocked. Well, okay, I'm shocked. You win. You got it. Have you submitted them? Because I don't think the feds are accepting them until middle of February. They just started at the end of this week? This just started. Okay. All right. So this is a pretty big crowd. And we have one person that's completed their taxes. So we have a lot of people. I have about 3,000 applications in my system already. About 2,998 and a half are not totally accurate. And that's okay. If schools have a deadline, if you are all state of Illinois residents, if your child is considering staying in the state to go to college, I recommend that you do your FAFSA by February 15th. The state has a deadline on their need-based grant. Not all students, not all families are going to qualify for it. But sometimes I have students that down the road in the year, dad loses their job, I make changes on the FAFSA, and suddenly they are financially needy enough to receive this grant. But guess what? They filed the FAFSA too late, and I can't help them. So get it in early. It is an annual thing. I recommend that you do it every year. Remember the guy that walked between the Trump Tower and the Marina Towers, the goofy one that walked across the Grand Canyon? To me, that's like sending your kid to college without having to do the FAFSA with no safety net. The FAFSA is a safety net, a financial safety net, because we all right now are very comfortable with our situations. You think you got a handle on your finances. You think your job's good. What happened in 2008? God forbid that we go through that again. But there will be somebody in this room who is going to lose their job or have their hours cut back, or something is going to change in their life that is going to affect their ability to pay that $20,000 next year to send their kid to school. This form can help, and we'll get into that a little bit. So I strongly recommend that everybody do complete the FAFSA, at least the first year of college, because do you really, really know how much those schools are going to give your kid? Up until this point, it's an estimate. No school has delivered official financial aid award letters based on the results of the FAFSA. I just had dinner with Jerry Zabriskie. He's from Lake Forest. They haven't started. We haven't started. No school has sent out any official award letters. So you don't know what kind of an award you're going to get. Maybe your student will get a good scholarship from the school, and that's enough for you. The FAFSA might only then give you some loans. You don't want to borrow. That's fine. You do not have to borrow. But let's go back to the scenario I said before. You lose your job. You have to rely on those loans. You need better help. If you don't have a FAFSA on file, the schools are not going to be able to help you in the same way they could, or as fast as they could if the FAFSA was on file. This is another odd thing about this form. It's self-report. Even though you're supposed to use your tax information, you could put anything down on it you want. But the feds are smart. 1 in 3 people are selected for verification, so they have to provide the documentation. It's not an audit. It isn't that awful. It's just that you have to submit tax transcripts in order to prove that the tax information you have provided is correct. So why risk it? Okay. And then it is just like going to the ATM. PIN numbers are used to sign the form. All right. This form is going to ask about dependency, independence. Who has to have parent income and who doesn't? Parent income is required for the students who are declared dependent. And those students are the ones who cannot answer yes to the 13 questions that would determine that they are independent. First 2 are very easy. Are they going to be turning 24 in the year 2015? No. Are they in a master's program? No, they're just now going into a freshman year. The 11 other questions are ones that are tough. Are they married? Do they have a child they support? Other people they support? Are they in the veteran of the foreign wars? Are they active military? Are they an orphan or ward of the court? And then there's like 5 questions about homelessness. If the student cannot answer yes to one of those questions, then they are determined to be dependent and the parent's income must be provided. All right? So it's going to ask about the size of the family. So who is a family? If it is, the Leave It to Beaver family, you've got mom, dad, and 2 boys. But if it's the modern family, it might be, maybe it's mom and the kids, dad and the kids. Maybe it's mom and new husband and kids. Maybe it's mom and dad and no kids. It's not the same. It's the parents that the child lives with. If it's a separated family, then it would be the single parent that the child lives with, or the single parent and the new spouse, the step parent. Biological parent drops off of the FAFSA. This changes when we talk about another form. So you would put down the parents and any other family members. If you have a family that is also housing elderly grandparents, cousins, friends, you're feeding them, you're housing them, those can be counted in that household as well. Income is your income from work. If you own your own business, it would be, if you do Schedule C, it would be line 12, so it would be your income from work. And if you have a partnership, it shows that shows up more as business income, not your personal income. So the FAFSA will tell you very clearly what line items on the tax form you would use to give income. Assets is a tricky one because there's some things that make no logical sense. The things that you do include as an asset are educational accounts. And this one is kind of counterintuitive, but wait, I've got to pay for education. Why do I have to report the value of that account? Well, because it is an asset. There are some that if you do not send your kids to college, then you can draw out of that account. You would be paying taxes on it, on your earnings, because it's not going to educational expenses. So it's a liquid asset. So if in the situation that a student owns, not is the beneficiary of a college savings account, we have guidance that the parent should take ownership of that particular account. Doesn't mean you have to change anything. You would report it as your asset. 99% of all college savings accounts are owned by either parents or grandparents, and the students are just the beneficiary. So it is not their owned account. You would also report your cash, your savings, stocks, bonds, investments. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. You have to report both. That is correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If anybody else got a question about the college savings? Okay.
So 529 falls in this category.
Yes, that is a 529 does. Yes, and it is the value of that account as you're sitting there doing the form. Okay. If your kids have any trust funds, UGMAs, they are the owners of those. So that value of those accounts goes under the student. This is where I'm going to give you, it's not a secret, it's not a loophole. But for every dollar a student shows as an asset, 20% of it gets worked into the EFC. If the parents have an equal amount of assets, there is an exclusion because of our age and a few other things. I use a rough calculation that, if you're 40, your first $40,000 of saving is not even looked at. And then it's only calculated in at like 7%. So if you have the type of money that is movable for the student, you may want to consider it. But this first year is probably too late to do that. So if it is, depending upon what type of savings it is or investments, if the student has it and you're a family that's more of a middle or just upper middle class, if you're very wealthy or very poor, this is not going to matter. But if you're somewhere in the middle, you may want to use the kids' money that first year to pay the balance of the college so that those assets would not show up the next year. And keep a paper tag of what you have used of their funds. And then arrange something else later on in life to give it back to them. That type of thing. So this is a little bit of a secret as far as how assets will affect the students more than it will affect the parents. You could send this form to 10 different schools. How many of you have kids that I asked how many of you have more than 10 schools they're looking at? Okay. If you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to want to get it to all the schools, but you can only fill out 10 at a time. So the recommendation is to put down the top 10, wait about a week, because what will happen is the formal process, it will send it to all 10 schools, then go back. You can make, once you submit it, you can't make a million, but you can make a whole lot of changes on this FAFSA. It's not going to affect it. They don't care. You can do that. So you can drop off, let's say, the bottom 5, the least interested of the first 10, and add the next 5. And the same data will go to the new schools. It will also go to the first 5 schools as well, but there's no change. They just get another copy. It's no big deal, okay? So that's the way to do it. And as you funnel, you can drop them off later. Yes, sir?
So as soon as you submit that, it just goes the same day?
Between 24 and 48 hours, the
So
schools will
wait a
receive.
week, you're saying?
I say let it settle down because you don't know if you hit a real peak time. Plus, if you do it on a Friday, the schools may not get it in until Tuesday. Now, if you do it on a Monday, we'll probably get it on Wednesday. But if you do it on a Friday, we might not get it until Monday. So I say give it about a week. And when it's really, really busy, like April is a super blowout time, you may need an extra day. But if you're doing it early now, you can wait about 5 to 7 days. If by chance you are selected for verification, you are required by law to give that information to the schools so they can finish processing. And this is the verification, 35%. Now, I will tell you about this 35%. My experience says the majority of the 35%, so about 29, maybe 32% of them, have the Pell Grant, the most needy of students. So the likelihood of someone at the high end getting selected for verification, if you do get selected and you have a pretty high EFC, probably you better buy a lottery ticket because it is not that common. It does occur, but it's not that often, okay? So I can't say you really hit the jackpot, but somebody's looking at you. So these are the things that verification would require. There are a few other things that we may ask for because we have it gets a little bit granular farther down, but we don't have as many students that are involved in it. And you've got brand new freshmen, so they probably wouldn't affect it. As far as number of people going to college, it is usually just the siblings. Parents who are going back to school do not count as number in college for the sake of this question. If the parents file the FAFSA, they can claim their kids, but not the reverse. And why is it a big deal? If you did the FAFSA and your EFC, expected family contribution, was $20,000, you had one kid in college, and then you put 2 kids in college, the EFC for each student would be like 10,000, cuts it in half. So in about 1999, they decided not to allow parents to be included in this equation at that point. All right. Now, depending upon what schools you're looking at, some schools verify every student every year. I do not have the staff nor the patience to do that, but a lot of schools do, and they have that right. You have to understand that the schools within the federal guidelines are allowed to do as they wish with asking for this information. Many of them will verify every single freshman because they want to make sure that that base year is an accurate year, okay? If they ask for it, give it to them. If you don't understand what they're asking for, call them. One of the things that a lot of parents have problems with is with the taxes, because up until 4 years ago, if someone got selected for verification or we questioned something on the tax information, we would say, give us a signed copy of your 1040 or 1040A or EZ. Can't do that anymore. You have one of 2 choices if we ask you for that. The one is to go into the FAFSA, and if you have completed your taxes electronically after February 15th, and you go into the FAFSA and to fill it out, and you put down that you've already completed your taxes, it will pop up, oh, well, would you like to retrieve your information from the IRS? And the right answer is yes. And then they'll ask you to basically authenticate yourself with your name, your social security number, the address, and it'll search the IRS, and it matches your tax information. And then it'll say, would you like to go to the IRS website and view this? And the next answer will be yes. And you look at it and you say, that looks about right. And then they'll say, would you like us to import that into your FAFSA? Again, say yes, and it will import the right data elements into the FAFSA. And you don't have to key them in. And that tax form has now been verified for the schools. Okay? Yes.
So if we are doing estimate right now,
Mhm.
and we go through this process, which you just described,
Mhm.
then we do not have to enter any data again. It can be pulled from IRS.
Okay. His question is if you're doing an estimated one now.
Yeah.
The question is, what is your filing status of those taxes? Already filed, will file, will not file. You'll put down will file.
Right.
It will not give you the option to go to the IRS.
Right.
Then when you're finished with your taxes, you go back into the FAFSA.
Okay.
You go to that question, change it from will file to already filed, and then it will give you the option to do that, and it's done. Okay? If you, yes,
Every year I have to send paper tax return. I don't file
Okay.
electronically.
all right.
Does it change the process?
It'll make it a little bit harder for you, but you can still do it. You have to wait about 8 weeks before you can get that tax transcript or get that import. Now, in the event that you prefer not to do the data retrieval, if it's a case of a filing status, maybe you had to file an amendment, you're not going to be able to use the data retrieval, okay? If you have parents who have separated, but they filed the same form, on the same form, they will not be able to use it. So then you have to go to the IRS website, and the FAFSA will give you the information how to contact them through, it's a link, and you request that they send you a paper tax transcript. At some point, they also provide a PDF through the internet that you can print off, and you get that to the schools. But if you are doing paper forms, you'll probably have to wait 8 weeks after you submitted it before it will be available. But it will be. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, did you say that the data retrieval through the IRS was available after February 15th? as
Yes.
long as you filed?
Correct. Mhm. That is correct. It will be ready by, that's what they're telling us anyway. And I believe the feds.
Okay, thank you.
But, pardon me? Once the data retrieval is available, which should be the middle of February, 2 weeks after you have electronically submitted your taxes, you should be able to get it. 2 weeks afterwards. So if you file the FAFSA now, You're using estimated tax information.
Mhm.
You wait until March 1st to do your taxes. March 15th, go back in, do your data retrieval, and update that information. Yeah, and then you'll be good. Once you hit submit for the first time, that's the official date of record for that year for that particular form. So the state gets that date, and that's what will stick. Okay, but it is better after that point to take your time, do it right, and don't get all scared because they're going to want it. They're going to want it. Schools have to understand that if data retrieval is not available before February 15th, nobody's going to give them a tax transcript or a data retrieval by then. Okay, they understand that. Okay, yes.
Another question.
Mhm.
You earlier mentioned that by February 15th we should do FAFSA, right? So
recommend
you
it.
could
Mhm.
you recommend it.
Mhm.
However, the pull that you need to do that you would
You
not be
could-
able to do. So
Right.
do you still go through the process of
Do that.
estimating
Do the estimated
before
right.
February
Mhm.
15th?
That's what they want. Mhm.
That would become the
And then
record
you
of.
can. That'll be the date of record,
Okay.
and then you can go back and update it
Okay.
later. Yes.
Thank you.
So you're not actually hitting you because you said don't hit the submit after you're done. So
No,
the
no, no,
forms
no,
are
no,
still
no.
there.
I said once you submit, then that's the date that you hit submit is the date of record.
Okay.
Okay.
Estimated tax, what is the validity of that tax? Because sometimes you do extension of the extension.
Right. Well, that's a problem. Extensions are a problem.
Yes.
Schools will process the FAFSA, but we have to get certain documentation from anybody that has to do an extension. And there are a lot of business owners who do extensions. So you will provide the school, if the school asks you for proof of your taxes, you will have to give them a copy of the form that you requested the extension, send that to the school. You'll have to give them an estimated adjusted gross income number. And most of them will work with you and process everything fine. I prefer after the fact, after you have filed your taxes, it might be in November, that then I get a tax transcript. But in the meantime, I will go ahead and process the student. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move along.
What
Yes.
exactly happens with that?
Nothing. It's just that it's like the schools right now haven't started doing award letters because our software is not updated yet. We can't process. Same thing with the IRS. They don't have their software, their technology up ready to accept the request to get those tax forms. That's all. It's not it's just a date that they expect to be ready to go. Okay. Yeah. It's not like April 15th. It's not like that date. All right. Lastly, the bottom one, special circumstances. Remember that word, because that is in the event your family has a financial disaster that, in 2009, I got a lot of people who lost a lot of assets that they were planning to use for assets or even income they were planning to use for college. And that's rough. And God forbid that this one happens, but I have had it more times than I'd like to say. I have a surviving spouse come in that their spouse passed away. If they're the primary breadwinner, that income is not there. And so what the schools can do is to proof of the death. We can back out the deceased spouse's income from the taxes, and the FAFSA will get evaluated again. And at that point, usually the student is much more needy. Okay. If I have someone like that comes to my office and they didn't do the FAFSA because everything was perfect in their world, I have to tell them to go home, sit down, fill out the FAFSA, and then come back. And that is a painful thing to do when you have a grieving spouse. Okay. So it's a form. It's free. And now, I'm not bragging, I'm just going to threaten you. I've done it 26 times. I'm still walking, I'm still breathing, and didn't hurt me one bit. So it is something not to be that intimidated about. everybody is frightened about how much is it going to cost to send their kids to school. It is a big deal. This is the largest commitment you're going to be making outside of your personal home. One of your largest. Someone once said that for every 1 year of college that you pay for your kid, you could have a brand new car in your driveway. And depending upon what kind of school you could have a pretty nice car. So it is expensive. So use the resources. Like I said before, how do you know what you're going to get if you don't apply? Would you just assume that you were going to not win if you bought a lottery ticket? Well, you would spend money. You buy even $1 lottery ticket, and sometimes you win. You might win, okay? Some schools require it to keep their academic scholarships. They may not be related. Doesn't matter. School says they want the FAFSA, and you've got a scholarship, your kid has a scholarship. Why would you risk losing money? Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to give my tax information. Too bad. Get over it. Because if you don't, you're going to be the losers. Maybe your child will be the loser. Okay? Yes.
Is the FAFSA taking into account the outside, cost differences, like, we all know that property taxes are higher here now. Is that part of the factor?
It not necessarily regional, but state, yes. Because in the formula, it will ask your state of residence, and based on that, there are different percentages used where the states have a higher cost of living or tax base. Then more is, what's the word I want to use, is pulled out, not accessible for education. Yeah, that's a good question though. All right. Institutional methodology. I'm a little weak on this only because I've never had to do it and I don't work at a school that uses it, but lots of schools do. As a matter of fact, about 400 schools and scholarship opportunities use the CSS profile. At this point, how many of you have filled out the profile? Okay. School said you had to do it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you did it. This particular form costs money. It is not free. But if the school is telling you that you need to do the profile, you need to do it. What is the difference? Well, number one, like I said, it costs. It costs $9 to complete the form. And for every school you send it to, it costs $16. So generally, if you just did it for the one school, it would cost you $25. It asks for much deeper information about the financial status of the family. The very minimal surface of the differences are the FAFSA doesn't care what your home was valued at. Profile does. In the event of a split home, the non-custodial parent's income doesn't show up on the FAFSA. It does on the profile. Another thing which I missed, and I apologize, on assets, retirement accounts. The value of a retirement is not included as an asset on your FAFSA. If, however, you made any kind of a contribution in the previous year, so having money taken out of your paycheck, maybe you contributed $2. $2 would be reported as untaxed income. But if that account is worth $1 million, FAFSA doesn't care. Profile will. Now, why do they ask for this? These are the schools or scholarship programs that have a large endowment or a large fund that they can award out to their students. And they want to make sure that they are spending their money well. Just like the federal government has the FAFSA, they want to make sure that they are spending their money well with that. So they don't use the CSS profile to determine any kind of federal gift aid or federal loans, any kind of state gift aid. They don't look at that. They use the FAFSA for that. But in the awarding of their own endowments, this is what is used. Has anybody heard of the Evans Scholars? We do have a couple. Evans Scholars is golf caddies. Male, female, who were caddies in high school. They have a need-based scholarship. You're all going to be terribly jealous when you hear about this. They get, the families have to come from need. The kids have to have put in so many hours of caddying, if they get approved, they get their tuition and fees covered 100%. Whatever school they get admitted to, it has to be an Evans Scholar school, okay? So in-state, out-of-state, Notre Dame just has gone on the list. They get a house to live in for free, and the only thing they pay for is their food and their books. Guess where it is housed? Evanston. It was started at Northwestern. It is basically Midwestern schools that are involved. And I have a son-in-law who was an Evans Scholar. And 2 weeks ago, he interviewed. That day alone, they gave away $1 million. They use the profile because they want to make sure that they're using their money well. Any questions about the profile? Yes.
I will go back and ask a question about retirement account.
Yes,
And
okay.
profile asks for it.
Yes, it does.
When you talk about retirement account, total balance,
Mhm.
what kind of things are we talking about 401k and all that, because those are untaxed or tax deferred.
Both
But-
when they're asking for retirement accounts for the profile, they're asking for the value of anything that is earmarked retirement. So it could be a Roth, whether
That
it's
was my
pre-taxed or taxed. They want the value of the account, so they don't care
Untaxed or
untaxed or taxed.
Also they
Mhm.
are.
So the Roth, IRAs, 401ks,
401k.
403bs,
And also includes the health savings accounts.
and the health anything else that you get benefit from. Yes. Mhm. It'll be very clear about what they're looking for. Just like the FAFSA will tell you the line items or exactly where to look for these things. Profile will do the same. Yes.
Just going 2 pages back about EFC.
Mhm.
Let's say I received an email that my EFC is 8,000.
Mhm.
What exactly does it tell me?
Oh, you want to know so much. What does an EFC of 8,000 tell you? Well, it tells me a whole lot. It doesn't tell you. It is supposed to be telling you the minimum amount you are expected to pay for school. But what I know about an $8,000 EFC is that the student would not be eligible for the Pell Grant because that has to be below 5,300. If the child goes to an Illinois school, could be private or state or community college, and you get that form in prior to February 15th. We really don't know what the deadline is. I'm just shooting for the 15th. It could be eligible for $4,628 per year from the state of Illinois. With the state, once you hit $9,000, you're not eligible for the state grant. It goes from 0 EFC to 8,999. 9,000 or above, nobody gets it. Okay. However, if I did one of these special circumstances and got you below 9,000 and you filed on time, kid would get it. Okay.
So it's misconception because I thought that, let's say, if I'm looking at the college that tuition is 25,000, it means that I will get 17,000 in heaven. No.
Not necessarily. There are schools that would do that. And what that is called is filling need. Because I don't have this in here and it gets a little technical, so bear with me. Every school has to establish a budget. And the budget is based on the tuition, the fees, room and board if they live on campus. If they don't, then you have miscellaneous expenses for commuting, books, other things that the kids need for school, okay? Every student has a budget. If they file the FAFSA is how we do it. Then they take that. So let's just pretend, I'm going to use basic numbers here, okay? Let's say the cost of attendance is $30,000. Your EFC is $8,000. Can I use 10? That makes it easier for me. 10. So I subtract the EFC from that cost of attendance. And what we have down here is need, $20,000 worth of need. Now, if you go to a state school or community college, you'd probably get nothing but loans because at a $10,000 EFC, no Pell Grant, no MAP grant. They give you loans. If there's an exception that they give the student a merit scholarship, that would be in there, okay? But that's all you would get. The private schools is where this need thing is really a big deal because we will then, for the middle line, if you go to the really top end ones, They don't even give out merit scholarships, but my school does, like Forest does. We and Wesleyan, all the schools that are in this state, we give out a percentage of that need. We make sure that that student gets a percentage of that need fulfilled by gift aid. And if they're not eligible for state or federal money, it's all going to come from the school. Now, it could just be merit scholarship or talent, but it can also be grant aid because the need is there. All right, depends upon the school. Athletics scholarships are a little bit different. They don't look at need. It's all about how well a kid plays and they want him. But with the straight up students that don't have the athletic component, this is how the private schools do it. That's why I say the sticker price is $30,000. But if your child got a $10,000 scholarship from a school, they would probably get another $5,000 in a grant for need. That's $15,000. And if the total cost is $30,000, that's not a bad deal. That's 50%. Okay. So that's where the need is. That's a very clever question that he would ask that. I try to avoid need because over the years, need doesn't have the same impact as it used to. Need now is they need kids need a new cell phone or they need a new, you know, when I was a kid, I needed a new pair of shoes because I had a hole in the bottom of them. But need is a different story right now, but that is how it is handled. Okay. Yes.
The last slide that you had, where you had the $9 and $16. If the school requires profile, okay, where would one go and fill out profile and then?
So glad you asked. I have a form that has the 400 schools on. I have more than those. And that is the one that will list the schools or the scholarship.
So that's where
College Board.
Fill out.
College Board is the one who
Administers.
manages it.
And then is it similar to Common App where we send application to multiple schools? Is that the way it is?
Not with the
processed?
profile. You have to, well, you can send it to multiple, but you'll pay $16 for each one that you send it to. The FAFSA is like a Common App because that can go. Only if you're required to do the CSS profile. Only if you're required to do that.
How would you know that?
Well, I have this many. So you would look here. If you have been engaging in a school, you've been communicating with them, and they haven't told you to do the profile yet, they probably are not asking for it. Okay?
Don't do
Didn't
it.
know what they were asking.
Yes.
Don't do
Maybe
it
they
if you
didn't.
don't
We
ask.
didn't know what they were asking.
What's the
No,
school's
you
name?
know, you know.
Would that be on the website?
Huh? It should be on their website, but I'm not real sure.
Is there simply a website that you can
Yes,
find that list?
yes, that's what I did. I went to College Board, and they'll try to get you to register. You don't have to. You can just get some information. I don't have enough for everybody, but I've got.
We'll share.
Yeah, you'll share.
The better option.
Sure.
Oh, let's see.
Sure.
I've got it up here.
Let me just take a picture for him. Yeah. Take a picture and send it. Oh, here, yeah.
All right. You're taking me
It's
off
better
task
you
here,
keep it
guys.
electronic.
So we're gonna fly through the rest of this.
Sure.
I'm gonna have these, if somebody, if you wanna come up later, or here, I'll find them here. Slide over at the end. Okay. All right, let's talk about the type of aid. We haven't even gotten to the guts of this. All right. Financial aid is of two types. It's good that he brought up and forced me to talk about need, because now you all understand what need is. How do we get to need? So if there is a positive number when we do the subtraction, you got a little bit of need. So there are the types of financial aid come in two different types. One of them cares about the results of the FAFSA, and the other one really doesn't. Need-based cares, non-need-based does not. So something that makes a student unique, their talent, their academics, that's non-need-based. It is about the student. It is not about the income or the ability to pay of the family, all right? There's even loans that are non-need-based, unsubsidized, and the Parent Plus loan. But the need-based are where you hear grants. The Pell Grant. It's looking at the income of the family or the whole picture, the whole family. Federal work study. Kids can work on campus. It is a need-based award because the feds say they want it to go to families who have need. The purpose of financial aid is to help students to seek an education based on what they want to be rather than what they can afford. So that's why they instituted the need-based types of aid from the federal government. Private schools also have the need-based grants because we want to help the students get their education, okay? The loans, when I say a loan is need-based, I'm sure you're all going, a loan, I gotta pay that back. Loans that are subsidized, the subsidized loan and the Perkins loan, it means no interest accrues while the kids are in school. Even if they go on to a higher degree, if they have one of these loans, there is no interest accruing, and it's not like going to the appliance store that if you don't pay it off in 2 years, they capitalize it on you. It is starts to accrue an interest when they go into repayment when they get out of school. The unsubsidized loan, those that are non-need based, the interest starts to accrue when the loans are dispersed. Now, who gives us the money? Well, I've done a lot of talking about who they are, but I haven't categorized them directly. The federal government is by far the biggest contributor to financial aid. Lots of free money. There's other grants besides the Pell Grant, but that's the biggest one that we talk about. States, they usually require state residency. Some of them will allow it to go out of state. We don't care because we're from Illinois and it doesn't cross the state borders. But the grants are generally for needy students. Then the institutions would be the next source. So even if a school doesn't give need-based aid, they might give out merit-based aid. And like I said before, state schools are growing more and more to giving out merit scholarships, particularly those who are recruiting out of state. So I understand that University of Iowa is pretty good about giving merit scholarships to Illinois students or to other out-of-staters. I don't know that University of Illinois is quite as generous with their Iowa friends. I don't know that, but I do know, I've just heard recently that Iowa's pretty generous. So that can happen. It can happen from the state schools. Local organizations, that little booklet that you have, it tells you about filing or getting ready for college. This school and North have tremendous resources for local scholarships. It's worth your time to take a look at it. I can guarantee you one thing, just like buying that lottery ticket, if you don't buy it, I know you're not going to win. Look at these scholarships. And if your child looks like they qualify for some of these things, apply. Because guess what? Maybe he's the only kid that applies and they get it. Yes. Generally, they have the criteria with the name of the scholarship. It'll ask, you know, gosh, a lot of them will be, pardon me? Yes. Coca-Cola is a very generic, no, it's not that. The Coca-Cola scholarship happens to be a very generic one that I remember my daughter applied for it in 1992. It was worth like $100, but you had thousands of people who were applying for it. There's others that the criteria is a lot tighter. It can be based on their major. It can be based on their interest. It can be, there's some way out ones that it's, you know, how tall are you and that type of stuff. But it's usually more around the major, or in the state of Florida, I lived down there for 4 years. They have a ton of them for golfers. Now I keep talking about golf, and I don't know why. But they had tons of scholarships for golfers. So look at the criteria for the scholarships that they have listed, and that's how they may qualify. Yes.
Does it ever happen where a lot of, one cancels out another,
Not if you're talking about these outside scholarships, but I think what you're referring to is if a kid gets a merit scholarship at a school and then they bring another scholarship from outside to the school, will that cancel out the schools? It should not. It should not. At what I do, I'm pretty consistent with everybody else. A merit scholarship is something that the student has earned. They or they were entitled to. And if the school gave it to them, the school felt that way. If by chance the Rotary Club gave them another $1,000 and they have to bring it to the school to process it through financial aid, it should not affect that merit scholarship because there's no place that says, well, if you get the Rotary Scholarship, we're going to take that away. It should be added on. But what will happen is we have to go back to the need, and the school does have to look at the need and if it is being met. So there might be a little switch in the loans, but that you still get the same amount. But more importantly, the schools may have a limit of if you bring in more than $4,000 a year in outside scholarships, we will reduce your grant. But the Pell Grant would not be affected by an outside scholarship. The MAC Grant would not be affected by an outside scholarship. Yes, yes. Uh-huh. Mhm. Most of them are good for only 1 year anyway. But yes, it is, because anything that you can use to knock out another $1,000 off that bill is well worth the time to do it. They probably all have to do essays, but usually you can, edit them and use them for several things. Yeah, just make sure.
Change the name of this.
That's right. I've had appeals that they, dear, somebody else, and it's like, okay, well, obviously you sent many people this. Yeah. Also look into your employers, into the benefits. My husband worked for a company many years ago that there was a $1,000 scholarship for the dependents. It was in the benefits. I don't know why I knew that. I somehow or another I did. And 8 years later, I found that a coworker of mine, her husband was working for a subsidiary of that company. I said, do they still have that scholarship? And she goes, I don't know what you're talking about. She had 7 kids. That scholarship was still at the benefits. And she applied and she got those scholarships. She had 3 of them in college that year. So you may need to look a little bit deeper than, the medical and the dental and the, just to see if that benefit might lie there. The large companies are the ones that would have these. I would not think. And yet, I had students whose parent worked at Walmart. She brought in a scholarship for over $2,000. Kids who worked at Jewel and Dominic's, kids who worked there got scholarships. Yes.
It's just a pure benefit, it's not a scholarship. They want to try to consider that while they're figuring out your need, or?
Try that. Okay, say that again.
My employer was giving 40% of the cost of tuition.
Okay.
And I do not believe they need that. I think it comes after it's determined how much.
Okay, up to 40% probably. Okay.
I can talk to you later.
Yeah, that happens though, and generally what they do is they'll need a billing statement from the school that lists all the charges, all the financial aid, and then they'll fill in generally close, if anything 40% or less, because if the kid get a really generous scholarship and there's less than 40% of those charges still unpaid.
I'm not worried about that, I was worried about the reverse, so they want to try to use the 40% benefit.
No, they shouldn't, because the benefit is a payment on account. The benefit is not part of the financial aid package, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. Okay, loans, we'll go through these really fast. Perkins loan, we talked about. I really am not going to talk much about it. This loan started in the 50s, and it is dying. It actually expired last July, and they extended it, so it may not ever be, but it's a loan that students or the schools own, funded by the federal government for years and years and years. And we give it out to our neediest students, and it's a 5% interest rate. I'm not going to try to convince any of you that any of these interest rates are really super good, not in this market right now. But the qualifications for student loans is that the kids are admitted or enrolled in an accredited institution, working towards a degree, making good, registered and making good academic progress. No credit checks, no co-signers, and yes, even a 17-year-old can sign a promissory note on a student loan because they were out of high school. Leveraging is something you have to think about, because if you are in a position that you've got X number of dollars from savings that you can put into your kids' education, you've got X number of dollars you can take out of your income annually to give to your students' education, but you got a gap. What are you going to do with it? You can get a home equity loan. That's fine, because you do get benefit from that interest on your taxes. But student loans have forgiveness programs at the end of the line that no other type of loan has. They are growing and growing with the number of forgiveness programs that the federal loans have now established. You can be in teaching. There's one. The loans are extended for a long period of time, but like 15 years of the loan amount is forgiven if you follow. I don't want to get into this, but there are these forgiveness programs. Teaching, public service is the newest of one. And public service includes all not-for-profits, unless they are religiously based. These are things that if you need to leverage, think about what it's costing you to do the leveraging. If you're leveraging with your credit card, my bet is if you're not paying the credit card off every month, the interest you're paying is greater than what these student loans are, okay? So take that into consideration. I've had my own kids that I wanted to nurse. One day the hospital announced that this national nursing service, it was nationally based, would forgive $8,000 of student loans if they were working at this kind of a hospital, and they guaranteed that they'd stay there for 2 years. Within a week, she lost $8,000 out of her loan debt. Could I predict this? No. So it's one of those things that if you need to leverage, let your kids borrow first. If my husband and I believed that we owed our kids an education, we felt that we had been blessed by our parents' gift, and we wanted to do the same for ours. But I had 5 kids. Many years I had 3 of them in college at the same time. So they all borrowed, and we promised that we would pay their loans back as long as, God willing, we had the income to do it. So I'm almost done. Yes, I know. And we've been through unemployment. We've been through a lot of things. And it was the most humbling moment when our kids came up to us and said, Mom, we'll take over our loans. And I said, well, not yet. But anyway, it's what you want to do in your own family. It's an agreement you can have with your family. But if you find yourself in a position that you need to leverage, do consider student loans first. And then you can make an agreement with your kids to take care of it later on. I even have kids that the parents will do a plus loan, but the parents can't afford to pay it back. And it's an agreement that the kids will pay it back. I have not gotten one letter from one of the lenders saying, how come you're paying for this girl's loans? They don't care. They only care that I'm actually paying it, okay? So the kids do get benefit for the interest that they pay in a given year. But anyway, just consider it, because student loans, look at this interest rate based on, look at this one compared to the student loans. Student loans are at 4.22%. This one is, a parent loan is a 7.21%. This one does have to have a credit check. So if you could get by with $5,500 in a year, the freshman year of your student's loan, and not have to borrow a parent loan, you're saving yourself almost 3%. So I'm not giving you any kind of financial advice. I'm just saying, take a look at how you are leveraging yourself and what it's costing you. If you're drawing out of your retirement accounts and you have to pay it back in a certain period of time, student loans might be better. Yes.
But if you can pull money out of an IRA.
Yes.
Pay it back.
Depending upon your age.
You also, if you can pull money out of an IRA to pay back the student loan?
Probably not. You can pay for the education, but probably not pay the loans back. That would be, yeah. Okay. There's also private loans. Those go through banks. I usually hesitate to recommend them, not because they're not a good thing. It's just that the schools don't have the same kind of control as we do over the federal loans. All right. Award letters, packages, yes.
What's the limit? You have like a couple comments.
There is a limit to how much a student can borrow per year. Freshmen can borrow up to $5,500, sophomores $6,500, juniors and seniors each $7,500. Parents can borrow that cost of attendance. Let's go back to that word. Subtract out the student's financial aid, including their loans, and if there's a gap, parents can borrow that amount, but you can't exceed the cost of attendance of all aid. Yes.
I know the student loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy, so the kids can be settled with them forever.
At this point, they are not.
Right, how
Yeah.
about the parent loans?
No. Educational loans are not dischargeable with bankruptcy. Now, the old way of saying is if you made 7 years of on-time payments in your student loans, they would be considered in a bankruptcy. But I'm thinking myself, if I'm filing bankruptcy, I probably wasn't making any payments for 7 years pretty regular, right? So I'm just, okay. So why do they even put that in? Yes.
Did you say that you can borrow or pay for college from your IRA and not pay the 10% penalty, just pay your normal phone?
Depending upon your age, you can do that. It is a legal way of borrowing from those retirement accounts. Depending upon your age, though, you may have to pay it back within a time frame.
Or pay the 10% penalty?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
So are you saying that student loans are never forgiven? Is that-
No, they are forgiven. They are discharged if there's a death, total disability, and now they have the occupational situations. Student loans, yes, they are forgiven, just not for bankruptcy.
Student loans are given what?
Death, permanent disability, and then a couple of the occupational situations. Okay, teaching, and then also the public services. Pardon me? If it's a student's loan, it's the student. Yes. Now, if you borrowed a parent loan, then the parent would be the one who could have theirs forgiven for the same reason. Mhm. Those are the things that make a student loan a little bit, educational loans a little bit different. Okay, yes. Yes. Pardon me? Who is it with? Okay, all loans, educational loans, the student loans, subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans are owned by the U.S. Department of Education. Schools can no longer use banks to process federal loans. You can go to some lending institutions for private loans, and they are private educational loans, okay? But they are outside of the what we call federal student loans. Yeah. Uh-huh. Past, present, and future. Past, your savings, your current income, and if the parents have to borrow in addition. Right. You can sometimes you can make payments to the school. It's between the parents and the student. You have to make a decision. Be wise with where you go. If you feel you absolutely will not be able to afford that balance, choose Plan B. Maybe it doesn't have to be a community college. What I want to do with the award letters, I'll give you a little comparison and figure out which school is your best buy. Okay, so let me get to this and then we'll talk about that. I do apologize for walking from that screen. Okay, award letters. If you file the FAFSA, you'll probably get, your student will get a financial aid award letter. Usually there is an announcement of a scholarship at the time they are admitted to the school, but the award letter generally is generated if you fill out the FAFSA so that you find out about the other types of financial aid, if there's any federal or state money included, and most likely loans will be offered on that particular award. It is the formal presentation of what the student will receive. That year, that is for that year only. Depending upon the school, they may mirror it every year, or it will vary if your income goes up or down. Could be a great change. You can't, some schools will guarantee it, some schools will not. If you're considering community colleges, student loans probably will not be included, just because the majority of the students don't need loans to pay for a community college, but they can go in and they can request them. Many schools are going strictly to electronic format of these letters. We're not quite that savvy. Plus, I know that my family's like, the new students like to have something in their hands. And so we will send out a paper letter, but we also send out notification that they can do it online as well. One of my daughters started college in 2002. She got a beautiful letter online. My school's still not there. So depending upon the school, they will have a different delivery method. Most of the schools that offer you any kind of scholarships or grants won't necessarily require that you accept those. Sometimes with the scholarships, they will ask for you to accept it and to commit to the school. But with the grants, I assume that if I've got a kid coming to my school, that they're going to accept free money, grants and scholarships that you don't pay back. But not all schools are like that. Read the directions. When you open up those packets, if you think it was bad trying to fill out the applications and getting the information on their admissions, wait until the financial aid letters come out. Because we are required by law to provide so much consumer information. You need to know how to accept your loans. You need to know how to do the master promissory note and the entrance counseling. You need to know about if they have scholarships. Will I get it next year? Well, it depends. Depends upon the school. Some schools, it's strictly a maintenance of a certain GPA. But other schools, it might be that plus get that FAFSA in by a certain time. Know the school. Now, you don't have to worry about every school, but as this process goes on, you're going to be funneling down. And when you get to that special school or special 2 or 10 schools, those are the ones you concentrate on. So that when your child sends in that deposit check or payment, you know exactly what you're facing. All right? So these letters are your first introduction to the world of financial aid, and when you finally have the information to start to determine which school is the best buy for you. Okay? My recommendation is that if your only reason for your child going to a certain school is because it is the best buy, doesn't have the major they want, doesn't have it's not in the state they want, and they can't live at home and blah, 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 you're not sending the kid to the school for the right reason. The most expensive school you will pay for is the one that your kid does not graduate from. Okay? So make sure that you send the kid to the school for the right reason. And it's not always easy. If you think your teenagers were hard up until this point, yeah, you guys, yeah, okay. So the award letters will show you the cost of attendance and will also probably give you what your bottom line is. What is it going to cost? It's going to take the cost, subtract out the financial aid, and give you that bottom line. Yes?
When does it come out? After you do FAFSA? Or
When did
later?
it come out? Well, it has to be after the FAFSA. Most schools will be starting around the middle of February to the 1st of March,
Okay.
private schools. If you are going to a school that does not deliver admissions notifications until April 1st,
Yeah.
it'll come after that.
Oh.
or right after they get that admissions letter. Yeah, because those deadline or the April dates, they're not going to tell you how much financial aid you're going to get because they only offer a financial aid to students who are admitted to the schools. So they can't give away that secret yet. Okay. So if you've got a variety of schools that some have that date and some are rolling, you'll get the rolling awards first. But if you're going, you will have to have that FAFSA done too so they can process it. Okay. All right.
So it'd be after April 1st.
Should be now because most schools require a May 1st commitment.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You're going to have to have your dining room tables cleaned off because you're going to have to do some comparisons. So let's go through that real quickly. This is just a little bit more, give verification to the schools. Now, you have 10 financial aid award letters, and you've got them all on April 10th. And you have to make a decision by May 1st. So, get a little piece of paper or a big chart or a whiteboard, I don't care. And you name the schools and you put down cost of attendance. Now, I recommend that you only add up the costs that the school are going to charge you. The tuition and fees, the room and board. Don't include books because you've been paying for books how many years? 18? Don't worry about the miscellaneous expenses because those are things that they can help with, whatever. Just the things the schools are going to charge you for. Okay, 10 schools, cost. Then you're going to take each award letter and you're going to add up the free money, the money you don't have to pay back. Merit scholarships, grants, don't count any kind of federal work study and don't count the loans. The reason I say don't count the loans is because whatever school you go to as a freshman, they're going to get $5,500. And that you're leveraging, you have to pay it back. So only that free money. Add up the free money, subtract it from the cost. Now you are going to get the true cost of that school. Very simple thing to do, but it can be a nightmare when you're also, but I like this school, I want this school, and this school, and get all that information in front of you so that you can sit with your child and do a good evaluation of the schools. Okay? These are my conclusions. Read everything you receive. I can't tell you how many people hand me a sealed financial aid award packet and say, what's in here? I don't know. It could be $1 million. It could be a snake. I don't know. You open it. Read it. Because this is information. These kids spend more time reading their text and their Facebook and all that, whatever. Well, I'm so outdated. They're probably not even texting and Facebooking. All that other stuff that they're doing. This stuff is really important. It is their future. It is your future. Read it. Digest it. And I'll tell you one thing. I don't have all the answers. I don't know a whole lot in this world. But one thing I do know how to do is to make a phone call. And sadly, our society is going so far away from that personal touch. You call somebody. You ask the question. And if they don't give you an answer that satisfies you or makes sense to you, ask for their supervisor. You are committing a huge, huge amount of money. You deserve that much respect. Now, I will say a little bit of honey on asking for the supervisor goes a lot farther than a lot of vinegar. But seriously, nobody cares as much about your kid, about going to that school, than you do. And if you expect that somebody is going to magically know your needs or know that they have misplaced your file, you're fooling yourself. If you don't take care of yourself and your child, I'm not asking you to be a helicopter parent. I'm asking you to be a responsible parent, a responsible adult, and teach your child to do the same so they get the answers for you. Okay? So ask the questions, don't make any assumptions, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. I still got a question about profile. I just didn't understand.
All right.
And the question is,
Now until they're gone, right?
my daughter told me that
Especially
we
the
can
month
do
of April.
online. She has an
Cancel
account,
everything.
full profile, and we need to fill it out.
Yes.
Now, online, we're gonna go up there, start filling the
Right.
document.
How many schools require her to do it?
We don't know yet, but I know about 4 or 5, I know for sure they're asking.
Look
for
on the
it.
back of that sheet. If she's applying to any of those,
Yes, they are. I checked.
then you put their school code on that form and send it to all of them.
But that's my question. How do we send it?
On the form, it will ask you what school
Yeah.
you want to send it to.
Right.
And they'll usually have a drop down that you can look at the school and you can place.
Okay.
That's the same way.
So before this goes, we can ask for a credit card, right?
It's
Because,
gonna- Yes.
because they're gonna
Pay
need the
for
money.
it.
Okay. So I
And
pay
then-
for it, and it's just gonna go. So that one profile form is gonna be distributed to whatever number of schools I send,
Correct. That is
and then we
correct.
are done. Yes, sir. That's the process. Thanks.
Yes.
Yes.